Every day, you are pulled into confrontations, some subtle, some explosive. Whether it's a disrespectful colleague, an emotional partner, or a stranger trying to provoke you. The moment you lose your calm, you've already lost. But what if you could stay composed under pressure and flip the entire situation in your favor without raising your voice? This video will show you how. The first and greatest illusion of conflict is that power is expressed through aggression. Most men believe that volume, violence, or intensity defines strength. They believe that showing emotion, anger, outrage, or hurt is a necessary tool in asserting dominance. This is the thinking of the reactive, the insecure, the weak. True power, the kind that bends others without ever touching them, begins with the discipline of emotion. Controlled emotion is not repression. It is weaponization. It is the decision to show nothing until showing something becomes a tool of manipulation. The man who cannot control his emotional state is the easiest man to control. He reveals everything under pressure: his intentions, his limits, and his fears. The man who gets visibly angry during a confrontation has already surrendered the upper ground. He has announced, without knowing it, that the situation controls him, not the other way around. The man who can remain calm, completely composed, steady-eyed, and deliberate, forces others to guess. His calmness unnerves the emotional opponent because it introduces a tension that cannot be measured. People are used to reactions. They are used to emotional cues. When those cues vanish, the human mind enters panic. What is he thinking? Why isn't he responding? Is he plotting something I can't see? That unknown becomes psychological warfare. In confrontation, calmness signals power because it demonstrates superiority over one's self. The person who can remain still while chaos erupts is not only harder to provoke, but harder to predict. Unpredictability is power. The calm individual creates psychological space between stimulus and response. This space is where strategy lives. It is where advantage is born. Most people confuse calmness with weakness. That confusion is to your advantage. Let them think you are passive. Let them miscalculate. When you don't react, they overextend. They believe they're winning. They speak more. They show their hand. They lower their defenses. Because in their mind, a man who doesn't react is a man without fire. But they forget, calmness is the sign of someone who doesn't need to prove anything because he already sees the entire board. Imagine a public confrontation. One person is shouting, posturing, gesturing wildly. The other stands still, unbothered, simply observing. The crowd will not admire the emotional one. They will study the silent one. Why? Because emotional volatility is common, boring, and transparent. But composure is rare. It is respected, even feared. Composure invites the question, what does he know that the other doesn't? Emotions cloud perception. Anger makes you ignore nuance. It makes you rush. It makes you speak out of turn and miss the hidden power dynamics at play. But calmness is a kind of sight. A man in control of his emotions can detect subtle shifts in tone, timing, posture. He can read the terrain like a general on the battlefield, while the other is emotionally intoxicated. The calm man is 5 moves ahead. Controlled emotion also extends beyond silence. It controls breathing, eye movement, facial tension. The way you carry your body in confrontation is as much a tool of war as your words. A slow, deliberate voice can overpower a loud scream. A calm gaze can paralyze a trembling face. A pause can carry more weight than 1,000 shouted words. The truly powerful man does not fight fire with fire. He brings water. He extinguishes the flame by refusing to feed it. This level of control is not easy. It is cultivated through practice, detachment, and understanding the true nature of power. The reactive man fights battles. The calm man wins wars. By refusing to engage emotionally, you refuse to be manipulated. You create space between yourself and the conflict. And in that space, you choose the most effective path forward, not the most impulsive. Every confrontation is a performance. It is not just a disagreement between two people. It is a theater of power, manipulation, and illusion. To treat a confrontation as something purely emotional or spontaneous is to walk into battle blindfolded. The wise man understands that when tension rises, eyes are watching, judgments are forming, and every gesture becomes symbolic. He knows that in conflict, Perception often outweighs reality. How you appear becomes more important than what is true. Appear stronger, and you will be believed to be stronger. Appear in control, and people will defer, even if inwardly you're calculating every step. Appear calm, and the entire tempo of the situation bends to your will. In a confrontation, most people act out of impulse. They argue to be right. They react to be heard. They speak without measure, thinking the louder they are, the more they are winning. But confrontation is not about truth. It is about dominance. It is about who appears to have the upper hand. The one who treats the moment as a stage, not a personal matter, wins control of the room. He becomes both the actor and the director. He knows where to look, when to pause, what to reveal, and what to conceal. Think of the most effective rulers, leaders, or tacticians. When confronted publicly, they rarely escalate. They do not shout. They do not fidget. They perform. Their calmness, their posture, their measured words, all choreographed. Even their silence is designed, because they understand that the real audience is not just the person they are confronting, but everyone else who is watching. In the game of power, optics are weapons. If you appear shaken, you've lost more than just the argument. You've lost reputation. But if you perform confidence, even when under fire, you project strength that echoes far beyond the moment itself. The performance also extends to the use of space, timing, and control of attention. The calm man owns the stage by controlling pace. He doesn't speak quickly. He doesn't allow his rhythm to be dictated. He slows down the moment, forces others to adjust to his tempo. He waits for the silence between sentences to make his words heavier. The longer he waits, the more the tension grows, and in that tension, he gains power. Most people fear silence in confrontation because it feels like surrender, but the performer uses silence to dominate. A pause before speaking can turn the room in his favor. It makes others lean in, anticipate, and submit to the weight of the moment. Body language is part of the stage. The man who treats confrontation like performance never slouches, never panics, never shows discomfort. His stillness communicates strength. His eyes scan without flinching. His shoulders remain squared. His breath is invisible. And because he is unshaken, the person across from him becomes more animated, more desperate, more exposed. The performance creates contrast, and contrast creates imbalance. When one man is calm and the other is visibly agitated, the crowd instinctively senses where the power lies. To weaponize the stage is not to lie, it is to control narrative, and narrative shapes power. If you appear calm in the face of disrespect, you confuse your enemy. They don't know if you're unaffected or preparing something far more dangerous. That confusion alone makes them hesitate. And in their hesitation, you insert control. The one who controls the narrative controls the outcome, because people believe what they perceive. They believe who looks dominant, who speaks last, who doesn't break under pressure. It is important to remember that confrontation is rarely private. Even if there are no physical spectators, there are always reputational ones. People will hear about it. They will judge your response. They will spread the impression of how you handled yourself. That is why every confrontation is a stage, not just for the opponent, but for your own legacy. What you display becomes who you are in the eyes of others. And when others believe you to be composed, calculated, and dominant under pressure, you win battles long after the moment has passed. Silence is not the absence of speech. It is the most calculated form of communication. In a world addicted to noise, the man who remains silent is not invisible, he is feared. He withholds. He waits. He chooses not to fill the space with explanations, defenses, or noise, and in doing so, he seizes control. While others feel compelled to justify, react, or win the moment through words, he wins through restraint. His silence is not submission. It is dominance in its most refined form. Most men speak because they cannot endure the pressure of silence. They mistake the gap between words as emptiness, when in truth, it is where power forms. In confrontation, the average man believes he must respond quickly, as if silence suggests uncertainty or weakness. This is a fatal misunderstanding. Tactical silence is the art of forcing your opponent into discomfort. It amplifies their anxiety, exposing their desire to be validated or to overpower. The longer you say nothing, the more they reveal themselves, through tone, through nervous gestures, through over-explanation. Silence acts as a mirror. It reflects what the other cannot hide. It creates a vacuum into which they pour their insecurity. Strategic silence is not passive. It is weaponized in real time. You watch their reactions. You measure their rhythm. You delay your words intentionally, not because you are unsure, but because you are calculating. When you finally speak, every syllable lands like a stone. The contrast between their frantic speech and your single sentence becomes the very force that breaks their rhythm. One phrase, delivered in calm and unhurried tone after prolonged silence, outweighs paragraphs of rushed argument. The more emotional or impulsive your opponent, the more powerful your silence becomes. It causes them to unravel. They mistake your lack of response for victory and begin to talk more. But with each word they offer, they give away their intent. They show you their fears, their motivations, their internal state. And all you have done is remain still. This is the economy of silence: expend nothing, gain everything. It is the most efficient strategy in the art of confrontation. Silence also destroys anticipation. People expect to counterattack. They expect to be met with force. When they are met with silence instead, they become paranoid. They begin questioning themselves. Did they say too much? Did they go too far? Why isn't there a response? Their confidence fractures. That fracture is psychological entry. By remaining silent, you allow them to sabotage their own position. You don't fight them. You let them fight themselves. The man who speaks little reveals little. He doesn't give the opponent anything to react to, imitate, or manipulate. He maintains mystery. And mystery, when combined with presence, breeds authority. Silence allows the room to tilt in your direction. It makes others listen harder. The fewer your words, the more weight each one carries, because people subconsciously attach value to scarcity. The rare becomes sacred. The silent man's words become rare artifacts, chosen with care, sharpened for precision, and delivered only when absolutely necessary. But tactical silence is not simply about not speaking. It is about deliberate pauses between words. It is about knowing when to look away and when to stare directly. It is about letting others rush into the void you create. You do not rush to correct a lie. You do not rush to answer a provocation. You let them continue. Let them reveal everything. Because every second they speak in your silence, they dig themselves deeper into a hole of exposure. This technique is magnified in public situations. Silence in front of an audience has greater gravity. The audience watches both parties, and when one is calm, reserved, and nearly silent, while the other appears emotionally charged or chaotic, it becomes clear who controls the moment. Silence becomes performance, not avoidance. It becomes a subtle announcement that says, I do not need to speak to dominate. My silence is louder than your words. In confrontation, most individuals see only the present moment. The insult, the raised voice, the perceived challenge. Their attention narrows, their emotions rise, their judgment collapses into a single-minded obsession to win the moment. But the man who remains calm sees something very different. He sees the entire battlefield. He sees what others miss because he is not absorbed by emotion, but lifted above it. His clarity is not a gift. It is a decision to detach from instinct and engage with strategy. The calm mind doesn't just observe what is said. It analyzes why it was said, when it was said, who was watching when it was said, and what that timing reveals. It picks up patterns in tone, cadence, hesitation. It identifies where the real threat lies, not in words, but in the positioning behind those words. Most confrontations are not about the topic being discussed. They are about control, territory validation, and deeper insecurities. The reactive man argues over content. The calm man calculates context. Remaining calm in conflict is like standing on a hill while others are caught in a storm. You see the shifts in terrain. You recognize the traps, the openings, the direction the emotional winds are blowing. You are not led by noise. You observe the silence beneath it. This is where real power begins, not in overpowering others with emotion, but in outseeing them. Most people react blindly. You don't. You act with vision. Your calmness allows you to move not as a pawn, but as a player who sees all the pieces. A reactive mind is like a fogged lens. It amplifies threats, distorts intentions, and narrows focus. But a calm mind slices through the fog. It reveals motivations hidden beneath surface-level aggression. It notices that a loud man is often insecure, that a sarcastic tone is often a mask for fear, that silence from others in the room is not indifference, but fear of alignment. These observations are only possible for the one who isn't consumed by proving himself. Because the calm man does not need to win this argument. He's not invested in momentary triumph. He plays the long game. He understands that sometimes the greatest advantage comes from letting the other win publicly, while quietly positioning himself to win in the aftermath. He doesn't need to be seen as right. He only needs to be effective. And effectiveness demands clear sight that emotion blinds. His strategy operates across time. He sees not only how the current exchange affects the next hour, but how it echoes into reputational influence, alliances, and future leverage. This clarity also grants him adaptability. While others cling to rigid reactions, he shifts with the terrain. If someone becomes volatile, he slows down. If the energy shifts, he adjusts posture, pace, and presence. He becomes water, shaping himself according to the pressure while maintaining internal integrity. A calm mind has nothing to defend, and so it can move in any direction without losing balance. This makes it incredibly difficult to trap. You cannot bait someone who sees the bait for what it is. You cannot destabilize someone who is already anchored internally. The calm mind also calculates the room, not just the opponent. It pays attention to who's watching, whose opinion matters, who will carry the story of this confrontation forward. It's never just about winning against the one across from you. It's about influencing how others perceive your strength, your patience, your composure. Because reputational capital is earned in moments of visible control. The calm man understands that he is being watched, and he uses this to his advantage, crafting a persona of unshakable presence. He is not fighting to silence another man. He is managing optics. He is arranging future power. He is mapping out the landscape while others are fixated on a single target. And because his mind is unclouded, he doesn't just survive the confrontation. He transforms it into a tool, into data, into leverage. What others see as a threat, he sees as information. What others see as chaos, he sees as opportunity. He remains still, not because he lacks a response, but because he is watching the entire war unfold behind the mask of a single argument. In the theater of power, the man who remains calm is not neutral. He is lethal. He does not flinch when provoked. He does not speak unless it serves him. He does not reveal emotion unless it is calculated. And he never enters a confrontation without knowing that the real battle is not fought with volume, but with vision. Most men crumble at the slightest threat to their ego. They react, they justify, they expose themselves. But the one who remains composed, silent, and strategic becomes untouchable. He is underestimated by the impulsive and feared by the observant. His silence unsettles. His posture commands. His restraint is a declaration of power far greater than any emotional outburst. He sees the confrontation not as a moment to defend himself, but as a stage to project dominance, as a mirror to expose others, and as a battlefield to win without drawing his sword. This man is not driven by emotion. He controls it. He bends it to his will. And because of that, he does not simply win confrontations. He owns them before they even begin. Calmness, then, is no longer a virtue. It is a weapon, a strategy, a sign that you do not beg for control because you already possess it.